Welcome to Forensic Friday,
where we examine the intersection of true crime, psychology, and the heart of being human in the middle of it all. It's funny because I'm the loud one. Are you with a shooter? You have a shooter over there?
It's butterscotch 99.
Oh my God.
It's
That's insane.
oh, chug a lug.
I need wine.
I know. I'm having a protein shake. So I'm a good girl. I think we're good. Sandie's got a fancy mic. She sounds great.
And headphones. Sandy's like the profesh over here.
Sandy looks more professional. Also, look at her background. Isn't it amazing?
I love it.
Oh, so background. So Rosie the Riveter,
Yeah.
my mom's mom, was Rosie the Riveter during World War II in Boeing in Seattle. My mom grew up in Seattle. So I love Rosie the Riveter anyway, because she's just flat out badass and
So
like
badass.
a feminist, like, trailblazer. But
Yeah.
then knowing my maternal grandmother was also Rosie the Riveter is pretty cool. The other one is Attack of the 50-Foot Woman, which I just got for fun, but I'm going to replace it with a shadow box of my dad's army uniform.
I love that.
That's so cool.
I'm going to put that next to Rosie.
Aw.
That.
Yeah.
Well, we are so pumped. First of all, I called you Sandie Campanella. I think I've been calling you Sandie Campanella for years. So it's Campanella, everyone.
Campanella.
Campanella.
Italian.
Say it with your hands.
Say you have to talk with your hands to say that correctly.
Right. So that was my mom's maiden name. So my grandfather, not for the notes, have Garrett edit this out.
Okay, Gary, you got to cut this. Yeah, I hear you. I mean, I had an aunt nobody knew was around, and we couldn't talk about it then for a couple of years. But Grandma died 2 years ago, so now we can talk about it.
My great grandfather on my maternal side, Italian, full blown Italian. So my great grandmother cooked for the Italian mafia.
Oh, that makes sense.
I know.
That's so cool. That's so cool.
Yes. It also makes sense about my family and like some of,
Well, my mom did the genetic DNA testing probably, I want to say 7 or 8 years ago. And she always grew up knowing that her mom was 100% Finnish and her dad was 100% Sicilian. Except for he was not 100% Sicilian. And he has a huge chunk of Jewish and Persian. And my mom was horrified. She's like, I don't know who he is, blah, blah, blah. My whole life, no, his lineage goes back. And so she's like, how did that happen? So I'm like, this is so weird, me telling you this as an adult, but I can tell you how that happened. There's probably a wayward lass down on the docks in Sicily.
A wayward lass.
Who threw down for like 7 of the best minutes of her life. And she kind of she completely polluted the pure Sicilian line.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then married the next Sicilian dude that came her way.
To pretend.
To pretend. And I said, well played. And so my mom was aghast. She's like, I don't know what to do with this. And I said, quite honestly, not to throw stereotypes and stuff. I said, I'm so relieved to find out that I'm like 11% Jewish because that explains so much about me.
Yes.
And she's like, Sandra Jean.
Here's the thing. People hold on to one part of their lineage, I feel like. Otherwise, they just can't handle it. They just have to fit into a box somehow. But we're all a bunch of mutts. We got a lot happening.
I know, but it turns out my grandmother really was 100% Finnish.
That's interesting.
Who knew?
And probably pretty rare. Every time I get in 23andMe, I find out something I'm not supposed to know about my family, so I'm not going to do it yet.
Me either. And I was kind of bummed being in law enforcement. I was kind of bummed to know that my DNA had been peripherally spilled onto a law enforcement access database. Well, she was all excited, and I'm like, yeah, WTF.
Does that mean you can't kill anyone now, Sandie, without it getting back to you?
Well, I can't kill anyone and then lick them before leaving.
Kill someone and like contain the scene probably pretty well.
Right. I just can't lick them
can't
or their
lick 'em.
doorknob. Yeah. I just can't lick them or their doorknob.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, I feel like, you're probably not going to get in trouble then.
I feel like I got all pretty much bases covered.
Well, y'all, Sandie Campanella is a close colleague of mine. We're on the application review committee for the DVOMB. She's also on the full, what do they call it? The ODVSOM board?
DVOMB, the Domestic Violence Offender Management Board. The full-blown, full meal deal.
And you've been on that board how long now? Long time.
Since May of 2018. And in fact, I'm term limited and fixing to get the boot in May of 26.
But you can stay on the ARC with me, right?
I can stay on the ARC, but I officially, statutorily get the boot in May from DVMB.
Are you sad about that?
I am really sad because I love being on the board and it's like part of my tribe.
Yeah.
And it's a very meaningful board and we do worthwhile work. Like it's a working board that does meaningful functional work surrounding domestic violence offender treatment. And so it's not a figurehead board or a board that just gets together once in a while to complain and like have cocktails. I support the cocktail thing and I support complaining, but
you do.
But I totally do. But DVOMB is a working board that does real, that takes on real projects and really oversees DV treatment in Colorado in a very specific, professionally oriented capacity.
Well, and I know this is true, being on the ARC, I've learned so much from you, and you're the chair now, right, of the ARC?
Yes.
Which is very exciting. So you're now kind of in charge of the meetings that we have.
I'm kind of a figurehead mucky muck.
With all the law enforcement experience and a foul mouth. Like we warned people. We said this one's coming with a label.
I try not to F-bomb. I try not to swear a whole bunch when I'm presenting anything in a professional capacity, but I will say in an unabashed, candid way that my preferred vocabulary and thought processes come straight from a steaming dumpster of filth that's parked behind a porn shop in a sketch part of town. That's where my vocabulary was born.
And you are fluent. I feel like being around you is an immersion exercise in a foreign language. Because you say things sometimes I'm like, I didn't even know you could put those words together like that, but I'm here for it.
It's super creative.
My favorite is starting this episode with 99 proof whatever.
Oh yeah, she's here.
That just says everything.
Right? I mean, butterscotch. Because, if you're in for a penny, you're in for a pound. And the reason it's called 99 is that it's 99 proof. So
no, I know.
If you're gonna swig, then swig for reals. Don't like sip. Like it's a swig. And I learned that in the Army. It's all about swigalicious. Make it count. There's not time to like.
You don't have a lot of time.
Like full send
not a lot of time. I can't sip wine, a beer. No, thank you. So
no,
go
get there faster.
40 proof or higher.
But that's some
Or
good
80,
for
80
life.
proof. 80 proof or higher. I mean, my bad. 80 proof or higher.
80 proof or higher.
80 proof.
You
You know,
wouldn't
I
like
love
my
Moscato.
sparkling Moscato wine would not be your thing.
Oh yeah, no. Her sparkling Moscato wine is like less than 5%.
Well, and
See,
I can't drink at altitude or we're done. Like if I have a margarita, I giggle for 4 hours. It's just thing.
That's amazing. So someone asked would I mix my 99 proof or my 100 proof moonshine, would I mix it with?
You're like, mix? What's a mix?
Well, no, I water it down with vodka because it's only 80 proof.
I mix my moonshine with vodka.
You're one of those people that I'd be like, I can't keep up.
No.
You know?
I know.
Nor do I think I'd want to.
Right. And the really great thing about a liver is that it grows. It can enlarge itself.
You got to give it a break, Sandie.
She's like, that's what daytime's for.
Or it's enlarged like cirrhosis.
Right. Right.
For most people.
I mean, and
most people take a break.
I've been at autopsies where it is so abundantly apparent that the liver was the immediate cause of death because when it's yellow instead of pink.
Yes.
And it looks like the cellulite on my legs. So it looks like bumpy, but it's bright yellow, like
how many autopsies have you been in?
Probably, I don't know, 40.
That's wild, Sandie. You're just wild. We have to back up because I want to get your history. I know so much of what you've done in your more recent past. Colorado Domestic Violence Fatality Review Board. I know that you train upcoming law enforcement and police academy, like all that stuff I know. But go back to the beginning. I want you to go like high school on. How did you get here?
That is such a long and winding and generally, I'm going to say it, generally fucked up road, and just this journey of mistakes and backpedaling and all kinds of things. But apparently, starting when I was young, like 7 or 8, my mom told me that I spoke of always wanting to be in the Army. And I knew that I liked history, World War II. I would watch. So I grew up in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
And so there was this series in the 70s called World at War. And it would play on Friday nights. And it was one of the last things that would play before you get the static and the test screen on TVs, because that was back in the day when there was network programming, and it would end at around midnight. So I would watch World at War starting in probably 6th grade. And it was newsreels and documentaries surrounding World War II. But my mom said I wanted to be in the Army way before that. And I was like, oh, that's weird, because I remembered wanting to be a ballerina and an actress.
You probably wanted to do it.
I've done that for sure.
Oh yeah, all the things. So in time, I decided that I wanted to go to college to be a doctor, like a medical doctor. And my grandfather actually offered to pay for my entire education. By then, I was in high school and I decided I wanted to enlist, and I could get the Veterans Educational Assistance Program funding. It was known as VEAP. I was between the Vietnam era GI Bill and the newer GI Bill, so I had VEAP.
Okay.
And I said, no, Grandpa, that's fine. It's super generous, but I can do this myself. And sometimes I think, what was I thinking? I turned down a free college education so that I could enlist for 94 cents an hour. But anyway, I decided
94 cents an hour?
Yeah. I and my compatriots figured out our hourly pay during a field exercise where we were working longer hours.
Mhm.
But we figured out our pay. We're like 94 cents an hour. I knew this job would pay. I knew it. I just knew it.
Wow.
And then we're like, hey, sometimes you get what you pay for. And so, but
Mhm.
I decided not to go to med school. I decided that I wanted to be in the Army, and a recruiter showed up in the cafeteria of my high school over lunch hour, and I went over there to ask not how to enlist, but how to apply for West Point. And of course, he talked me into enlisting because he didn't want me applying for no stinking West Point.
Mm.
And so I enlisted the summer between my junior and senior year, and I was in the delayed entry program. And I enlisted as a German radio voice interceptor. So
Wow.
I was in intelligence gathering with a German language expertise.
So you
Because
spoke German?
the Army sends you to the Defense Language Institute. It's known as DLI. So
Wow.
Oh.
yeah, but I spent my entire senior year in high school enlisted in the Army. And then 3 weeks after I graduated high school, I left for basic training. And that was an interesting journey. I grew up in a very large family, and so I'd never been on an airplane before. So my very first airplane ride was going to basic training at Fort Jackson, South Carolina
Okay.
in June
Wow.
to undergo approximately 7 weeks and 4 days of sweltering heat and new experiences and basic training. But I graduated from that. I came home on leave, and then I went to DLI, where I spent I think 9 months.
Oh, wow.
And then I left there and went to San Angelo, Texas, to an air base there where we did the actual intercept training. And we went from there to another training site in Massachusetts, where I, not bragging, because it's a shallow brag, but I got the distinguished honor graduate from this course in Massachusetts, but we were drunk every day, so I don't know exactly what it was that I.
You and your 99 proof.
That does make that extra special.
I mean, I think I missed one question on one test and everything else was perfect, but to this day, I have no idea what that little 5-week course was about.
Wow.
But anyway, apparently
tolerance and aptitude.
apparently I excelled.
You love that.
Apparently. And so then I spent 2 years in Germany doing intercept work, doing intel work, and that was fantastic. And I spent 2 months in Berlin on temporary duty, and that was while Berlin was still a divided, jointly occupied city.
Oh, wow.
And that was such an experience, because on one day I got to go, there was a lot of protocol and regulations around how you go to the east, but I got to go through Checkpoint Charlie when it was still an active east-west checkpoint, and spent a day in East Berlin, which was the showcase of the Eastern Bloc.
Wow.
And so it was really, really, really cool. And at the time, Soviet officers could utilize the American commissary and PX, because they also could go from east to west, and so they could use our facilities because it was a jointly occupied city. So I would encounter Soviet officers in the parking lot of our PX in Berlin. It was pretty cool.
Wow.
That's so interesting. Were there a lot of women?
You know, I think military-wide at the time, the female-male ratio was about 12% to 88% male.
Okay.
But within my specialty, within military intelligence, and especially within the language services, it was, someone said one time that our that was approximately 40% female.
Okay.
So it
You
was
had more women in your arena than in the general military.
Yes. Yes. And we were considered non-combatant. But with our mission was, intercepting target language intelligence. So if you were to be in a tactical unit that maneuvered, it quickly can become combat because once you put your big antenna up, it's kind of like a beacon in the night.
Mhm.
And so, I mean, that was 40 some years ago. It was during the Cold War. It was a long time ago. And so I'm relatively confident that technology and strategy and intelligence gathering has changed just because technology has advanced dramatically. But it was really a trailblazing unit and system that we used at the time. So it was pretty
That's really cool.
It was
That's
super
awesome.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so then I got out. I got out in 85.
Okay.
So before most of our listening audience was even born.
I was a year old.
I was not born yet. I was born in 88.
Oh,
there you
baby.
go. There you go.
Yep.
So, I mean, it was pretty cool. Then I got out and worked jobs here and there. I spent a total of 15 years of my life waiting tables as I went through school, supported my kids. I got a bachelor's in history with a focus in Eastern European and Russian studies.
Mhm.
And I graduated as the Iron Curtain was crumbling and as the Soviet Union was imploding and became Russia and the individual states that were encompassed in the Soviet Union. And then I worked a couple more years and then started graduate school where I got a master's in history with a focus in women's history. And then after that, I did a little of this and a little of that and spent a few years working in doctors' offices, being a non-medical, non-professional, super squeamish hypochondriac working in a doctor's office. You can't even imagine what kind of torture that is. So when people
I could believe that.
Yeah, I do.
So I sat at the front desk, and as sick people would come and go, if they coughed, my chair was on wheels. And if they coughed, I put my feet down and shoved back, and my chair would zoom like 4 feet away from the desk. So
I bet that made them feel great.
They love that. They're like, wow.
And if they happened to touch my pen, it would go in the trash.
Oh, yeah.
You know what, though? I get that.
I do too.
I get that.
Especially now, right?
Oh, yeah.
Post-COVID, yeah.
We know it's a thing. We know it's a thing.
Well, and it's not worth getting sick. If there's like preventative measures, if I got to move my chair back in a really fast manner, sorry, not sorry.
I mean, if it was a movie, you would hear.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That's how fast my chair burned out.
Yeah.
It's like, nope.
Yep. And so then a friend of mine, a very close friend of mine, knew that I had thought about law enforcement before. And she knew that I was not an ideal fit for the healthcare environment.
That's a good friend. A good friend goes, yeah, this isn't for you.
Given my intense level of hypochondriac behavior, hypochondriac type nuances, she's like, yeah, this isn't working. So she saw, back in the day, she saw an actual want ad for Longmont PD looking for recruits. And so she brings in this little torn ad, shredded from the newspaper. She plopped it down on the counter at the doctor's office and she said, look, you're doing this. And she's a great friend. She's a very scary friend. She's a Capricorn, and Capricorns tend to take no prisoners.
Yeah, I've heard this.
It's a true story. And so she told me that I was doing that. And so she and I and another friend drove to Longmont one fine day and it was a dramatically updated and more sophisticated town than it was when I was in high school. Because when I was in high school, if you wanted to have your ass kicked, you would get in a car with a couple of friends and drive to Longmont. And
Longmont's like, it's a whole vibe.
It is a vibe.
Lived there for a while.
Right. Not
Wow.
throwing shade on Longmont, because it's very, I mean, it's very, very
yeah.
sophisticated now.
Yeah, it's nicer now.
And a lot of artists, a lot of great restaurants, a lot of culture now. But when I was in high school, that wasn't the case. And so that was my opinion of Longmont. And that's so, but my scary friend said, "You're doing this." And I'm like, I was too afraid to tell her no.
Yeah.
So we drove to Longmont and I took a look around and I'm like, whoa, what the heck? And so I decided it would be great to apply. And plus I didn't want her to beat my ass if I
Said no.
if I refused. And so
Yeah.
I applied, and before you know it, I got a job offer there, and I'm like, what the heck? So
Sandie, if you don't mind me asking, how old were you at this point?
I was 40
Okay, so you joined law enforcement
at age 40.
at age 40. That's impressive.
That's incredible. Like, I'm sitting here thinking, could I go? I'm not going to do this. I'd be a terrible police officer.
I low-key wish I was a police officer. Anyway, continue.
Well, I think we'd be great detectives, but I don't think I would do well up to that point. That's the problem.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because I'm just not here for a bunch of nonsense. But if you got me into the investigating, that would be fabulous. But you got to put your time in, right? Before you get to do that.
You got to do like the graveyard shifts first, right?
You had to do the academy, and then you did 4 years on patrol.
Yeah, I did about 4 years on patrol. So you go to the academy, and Longmont's a great department. It's very progressive. It's very forward thinking. A lot of outside the box approaches to addressing chronic crime.
I love that.
Repeat offenders. It's a very progressive department, and I really appreciated that's where I landed. So go to the academy, and I think at the time it was like 16 weeks. I don't know. And then you do a little departmental academy that lasts 2 or 3 weeks, where you do things like get taser certified, which means that you get tased. You don't have to, you can opt out, but when you're the new girl,
you don't opt out.
You don't opt out. Like, you take the full ride. And all those little things, and you get to learn like Longmont geography and things like that. And then you start your field training officer program, also known as FTO. It's abbreviated FTO. You do FTO. So you have 3 phases plus checkout. And so with each phase, you get an increasing amount of responsibility. So you're held accountable for more and more knowledge. And then the checkout phase, that your checkout trainer was phase 1 trainer. So you have 3 different trainers. And I tell you what, it's terrifying, and it's really super hard, and I would say largely unpleasant to have to do things that you don't know what you're doing, that you're not naturally good at. And you have to keep a stoic, straight face when you hear at the end of every evening what you did well and where you just flat out sucked. And it's actually really hard. It's really hard to have to listen to all that you sucked at, and why that needs to change and how you're going to change it. And, I never like to make the same mistake twice, but there were some things, that were just harder to overcome. So there were many nights when I would drive home. Well, actually on phase 1 and 4, I was on watch 3, which is 9 p.m. to 7. And I'd be driving home into the rising sun, my vision blurred by my tears, as I'm wondering what else I can do with my life. And I'm like, and my job at the doctor's office, it's already been taken by somebody. I can't even go back there.
Can't go back.
No.
And
what was the hardest for you? What was the thing that they were consistently saying, Sandie, girl, you got to do XYZ better.
You know, I really struggled with geography because I wasn't familiar with Longmont and the downtown parts of it, like
Well,
the
cops
immediate.
have to know every nook and cranny, really.
Right. And so we had MDC's mobile display computers, or MDTs, mobile display terminal, or MDT. So you would have a little laptop in your car, in your patrol car, and there was a map app on it at the time, but this was 2003. And so it wasn't like GPS. So you would go to the address where dispatch was sending you, and it would give you a map from the fire map. It would give you a page from the fire map. So it would show your general approach.
Oh my gosh.
But if you're across town, you have to figure out how to get to that grid.
Right. Yeah.
And at
And this is
night,
before your phone did this for you, too.
oh, way before. And then, when it's watch 3, it's nighttime. You can't even see where the mountains are. So like in those subdivisions where the windy road,
I never even thought about that that's part of it.
Yeah, at night you can't see the mountains. So you can't even orient yourself to where east and west are, or north and south, because it's all unfamiliar. So I really struggled more than anything else with geography, and I was never stressed about how to handle a call once I got there. I was just stressed about getting there, and I would literally shit bricks trying to find this call for service. And one time I was trying to not panic, watch 3, and I was on checkouts, so that final 2 weeks where I had to be able to handle everything. And then your trainer is in civilian clothes, so that citizens defer to the person in uniform. So they're not the one that's, the authority figure. So I'm trying not to panic, and I can't find this place, and I'm driving around in a subdivision that has drives and circles and all these interlinked and dead-end streets. And finally he said, "Stop the car." And he said, "Where are you going?" And I looked at him, I said, "Dude, I'm going straight to hell if I can't find my way out of this subdivision." And then he started laughing. I mean, it was a risk, because I'm like, this dude is in charge of my future. Dude, I'm going straight to hell, man. So he's like, "Okay, fair enough." He's like, "Yeah, these maps suck, and this subdivision sucks. And so, like, take a right, take a left." And so once he did that, I knew where I was going, and so I was fine.
Yeah.
But I really struggled with that. There's a lot of earning your respect mentality. So when you're new, you're a woman, and you're middle-aged, there's a lot of proving that you have to do, and expectations.
Is it similar to fire, where you go through the academy and then you're on like probation? Okay. And that in itself is like part of that proving.
Yeah.
For men and women. And then you add in the component that you are, it's funny, like you say, middle-aged now, or like, middle-aged then. Now 40 is young. Like 30 is the new 20. So.
Oh, I know. And 60 is the new
40.
25.
Right.
25.
Clearly, that's what I've heard.
25 now.
Yeah. You know what? You're not wrong. Some of these, these 60-something-year-olds that we work with, I'm like, you were doing what? Where?
Oh, yeah.
Like, huh? Come again? I'm in bed by 10.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Right? For real. Yeah. So, I mean, it was great. It was great. So I did 4 years patrol. And then there was an opportunity to, they got a grant or some funding where they could increase the size of the school resource officer unit, known as SROs, which most people know. And I decided that I really wanted to be an SRO. It felt like really meaningful work.
Yeah.
And really having opportunity to shape lives at a younger age than waiting until they're the involved party in a call for service and they're going to be arrested. So I was like, no, this will be really cool. So I put in for SRO and I was selected. And I spent 3.5 years being assigned to two middle schools in Longmont. And it was such a good gig. I mean, middle
I
school
could
is
see you loving that.
it was a sweet age because they come in sixth grade, they're 11 or 12, and they have their little Power Ranger backpacks, and they cry when they can't open the locker, and I'm like, man, I feel your pain because some of my stress dreams have to do with not being able to open the locker or realizing I'm not wearing pants. I'm like, oh, buddy, I get it. I get it. Dude, it's okay. And then by the time they leave middle school, they're frequently bigger than I am as an adult woman, and already starting to entrench in healthy or unhealthy life paths.
Yeah, you got to get them young.
Yeah, and so it was really cool because we got to know kids, even gang involved kids who were obviously criminally involved, high risk, didn't have much of a chance of a bright future. We'd get to know them as people and then address the behavior separately from you suck. It was more like, dude, you really did that at school? Dude.
Yeah.
And so.
And women get a different audience, don't you think, with gang affiliated youth? Like that's where it's an advantage to be a woman, I think.
There are many arenas in which it's better to be a woman.
Yeah.
But I will tell you also, even as an SRO, I was taken to be school security. Why are you here? Hey, lady. That kind of stuff. As SROs, we were allowed to wear soft uniform, which was like patrol pants, but a polo shirt with that school's logo on it. So it was called a soft uniform.
Did you have a gun or a taser?
Both.
Both, yeah.
Yeah. And so, still wear a duty belt.
Yeah.
But you're not wearing the full scary looking uniform. And there were times when people would say, hey, lady, hey, bitch. You're not the police, as I'm standing with a gun and a badge in front of a clearly marked patrol car. So I did the soft uniform for about 2 weeks, and then I switched to a full patrol uniform. But I was still, as a woman in uniform at the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes people would just assume that I was not the real police.
Like a rent-a-cop?
Something like that. It was interesting. It's just reflective of our culture that we still have. So when you hear people say, "Oh, I had a lady pilot," I had a female patrol officer respond. There was a female firefighter.
Yeah.
Blah blah blah. That proctologist was a woman. Whatever. God bless her.
Yeah. Give her a medal.
Yeah.
Sure thing, sister.
Yeah.
But it's still like this incredulous thing that there would be a woman flying this airplane or a woman, in a combat role or, fill in the blank, a woman drywaller and those. So, and I honestly, I think it was probably even more pronounced back in 2003. So that was always a challenge. You take it in stride. You can't get mad at everyone that calls you, hey, lady, hey, little filly. That was a good one.
Wow.
Hey there, little filly.
Like when they call us, sometimes they call Nat and I, they being our domestic violence clients mainly, will call us girl or miss. I don't mind too much. That comes somewhat from institutionalized settings. I get a little bit of that.
Right.
That and culture.
But we also get like sweetie. I've
Oh,
got,
hell no.
that kind
I
of
had someone call me Sunshine one time. They said, "Good morning, Sunshine." And I said, "It will not be a good morning for you if you continue to call me Sunshine."
Also, they don't know you at all.
That is not going to fly, sir.
You are not sunshine.
Do not.
No.
Nope. You already blew it, dude.
That's
Yeah.
right.
I was
We
like,
don't
today
want
you were supposed to complete. You're not completing today.
Nope.
that.
This will be like in the FTO program. If you were circling the drain or not thriving, it was referred to as NRT, not responding to training. It's like, dude,
Yes.
you could do NRT for not responding to treatment. You can borrow that NRT.
NRT,
Yeah.
I'm writing it down.
NRT.
We're going to
all over
incorporate
the
this in our discharges, not responding. We call it unamenable.
I like that too.
I know.
But yeah, so nobody wants an NRT, but some people get them. I never got an NRT, to be very clear.
That's good.
So yeah. So then back to my life path. Not that it's really unfascinating.
I think it's very fascinating.
I do too. I'm sitting here like edge of my seat. Like
I'm like, what was your next career choice?
Oh, I know.
Yeah, so after so my first love was always domestic violence. And a great friend of mine who worked at the Longmont Police Department enlisted my help early when I started, 2004, maybe 2005 at the latest. So I'd only been there a year or two. And she asked me if I wanted to help her present at the Front Range Community College. I think it was the EMT class.
Okay.
And they invited her to do a presentation on DV so they would know what to look for, what it's like, what people might say, injuries, yada yada. And I told her, I said, "Oh, I do not know how to do public speaking." Like, believe it or not,
I don't believe that at all.
It's hard to imagine.
I used to be terrified to speak in front of crowds. And now there's just not a microphone I don't love.
Sandie, we have that in common, girl.
I know. It's like, oh, a microphone? And you're holding
I'll
it in
take
front of
it.
me?
Yeah.
What?
What do you want me to talk about? I'll figure it out.
I know. Yeah, I'll make some stuff up as we go. It doesn't even have to be true or real.
Yeah.
So I started helping her train on DV, and I kind of gravitated toward those calls for service. I was just fascinated by the human condition and how people treated each other and what they did, what they said, and that whole dynamic. And so I started putting in for any DV related training that came our way. And a lot of it was free and local, which the department almost always approves. But some of it was cost money and was at other places. So I started putting in for that training, and I started being selected sometimes just for pragmatic reasons. This training is on these days. You're generally off on those days. It's easier for us to send you on those days, and so you can go. So that's how I would be selected based on schedule and pragmatism. Like, okay, cool.
And you were willing. You were willing to
Yeah.
go on a day off, and go to a training or whatever.
Yeah. And it's not a popular specialty. I'll just throw that out there. There, most law enforcement officers try really hard and try really hard to help people and DV victims. They try to figure it out and do the right thing and do the best thing. But most police officers, if they're being fully candid, will tell you it's kind of not their jam. They don't dig it too much.
Mm-hmm.
And so when there's someone who does enjoy it, like the department is like, okay, we're going to help facilitate your professional growth in this arena because it's good to have people that like this. So that was always my special interest. And I applied for detectives. So the DV unit at Longmont was housed in detectives.
Mm-hmm.
And I applied for detectives the same year that I applied to be SRO. And SRO selection process was first, and I was chosen. So I'm like, cool, that's good. And then I found out I was on the list to go into detectives, and I'm like, no, I'm fine with this. It's totally cool. But honestly, when I was at the schools, that's where I learned to communicate with people in crisis because, as we all know, almost every student in a middle school is in crisis.
Everyone and the
All
adults,
the time.
everyone's in crisis.
Because middle school is that's what it's for.
It's insane.
Yeah. And so I learned how to do trauma-informed work and communicate with students and teachers and parents who were in some level of upset or crisis or, some traumatic situation. And then also the schools would invite me to present on safety or teen dating violence. We were, depending on the grade level. And that's where I really practiced presenting to people who may not want to actually be there or hear that subject. Because the sixth graders, I mean, they're little, right? They still cry when they can't open their lockers, and and they are not polite or candid enough to cover their boredom. So they're not shy about sitting there like this with their head back and drool coming down their chin if they're just utterly bored. So I figured out ways of overcoming that their reluctance to participate in this lecture or chit chat, and figure out ways to engage them and interest them. So by the time I left the schools, I felt like fully versed. And 15 years of waiting tables, you learn how to figure people out pretty quickly if you want to earn a living with tips. Mm-hmm. And so, you just figure out some people need to be humored. Some people need a little bit of suck up. Some people just need you to take their order and bring their food and be left alone. You kind of learn to read the crowd pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. And so all of these bullshit, seemingly disconnected, unconnected, unrelated, stupid things that I've done in life kind of helped me when I did get to the DV unit in 2010. So there was an opening in the DV unit and I was selected for that. And I was relieved to find out that a lot of my communication skills were already trauma informed. Not that I didn't blow it, not that I didn't offend victims or totally fuck it up by saying the wrong thing.
Sure.
But luckily for me, there were plenty of brave and indignant victims and survivors who would yell in my face and say, you know what? That was such a bullshit question. I can't believe you would ask me something that fucked up.
And you cross it off the list.
I crossed off the list and I would say, you know what? And I would think about what I asked. And I said, okay. I can accept that I asked a fucked up bullshit question. What would be a better way of asking that?
So you were receptive to feedback.
Yeah, because I didn't want to make that mistake again.
Well, yeah, of course not. Yeah.
Right. And so these very courageous and brave ladies who were brave enough to yell in my face were also brave enough to tell me a better way to communicate with them. And so as a result, I've created a list of trauma-informed phrases that are kind of a consolidation of all of these pieces of high wattage feedback that I got from all these ladies over the years. So I kind of put them into phrases that are non-judgmental and open-ended. They're designed to let them tell their story. It's designed to let them refuse to answer the question if that's what is better for them in the moment. It's just, can you help me understand? I'm wondering if I'm really concerned that were you able to, what helped you decide to So those kinds of things, instead of saying, why did you? Why didn't you? Because those are judgy questions. Those suggest that they feel like trick questions, and they suggest that a victim did or did not do the right thing. And if they didn't do the right thing, then they're going to believe, it makes them feel even more vulnerable, like you're now not going to believe their story, or you're going to think that the story they're telling you is a lie because maybe they did call the police. Maybe the police did not make an arrest.
Yeah.
And so instead say, were you able to report those other incidents of abuse? And then the answer is wide open. No.
I love were you able instead of did you?
Did you or
why didn't you?
Why didn't you? Yeah.
Because why didn't you sounds judgy.
Right.
And
or
the
even
answer,
did you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if the answer is no, I didn't call it in fact, that was one of my verbal beatdowns.
You're like, I remember that one.
I'll remember that one.
Yep.
Like, well, hey, did you call those other ones in? And this victim, this lovely woman who, God bless her, was a mostly functional person dealing with some substance abuse issues that had cost her significant loss in life of some very important things and people and relationships. And she was in this very violent relationship, and she was talking about, as I was investigating the acute situation, I asked her, well, has this happened before? And she's like, well, fuck yeah, it has, because she was still a little bit a little bit intoxicated. And I said, well, did you call those in? And she let me have it with both barrels. And that's when she's like, that's a fucked up question. Blah, 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 blah. How dare you? Fuck you. Blah, blah, blah. And
yeah.
I was like, okay, fair enough. Fair enough. And then so she's screaming at me, and she wants to know if I want to know why she didn't call it in. And I said, well, first of all, let me apologize for the bullshit question. It clearly is. I said, it clearly triggered a reaction, so it must be a bullshit question. So I give. And I said, and yes, I would love to understand why you did not call in those other incidents. She's like, well, because I was in the mountains and he took my phone. There was no signal. But even if there was a signal to call it in, he had my phone. And she said, and when someone is threatening to chop you to pieces and kill you with a hatchet that they are holding over you, no, you are not going to call it in. I thought,
valid.
Fair enough.
That's valid.
I totally 100% deserved the verbal beatdown and the in progress lesson that she rendered. And I love this lady, and I appreciate her teaching me that. So instead, the correct way to ask that question is, were you able to call that in? And in her case, the answer would be no, or with her, it'd be fuck no.
Yeah. I wasn't able to do that for a good reason.
Yeah. And sometimes the answer is yes. Yes, I did call it in.
It's such a myth. It's such a myth that victim survivors of domestic violence, that they're mousy, skittish. That's sure. I mean, that's true sometimes, but a lot of the times they are fierce, brave, wonderful human beings who are trying to stay alive and trying to find a way for their children to survive too.
They're so brave, and honestly,
they're so brave.
So brave. And it takes so much courage to stay in that relationship. And there's so many reasons why people do.
Yeah.
And we as a society at large judge them fiercely and harshly. And it also takes just as much courage to leave that relationship because of the consequences of leaving. So no matter what, victim stays, victim goes, it's going to cost them a significant amount blood, sweat, tears, sometimes their very lives, sometimes the custody of their children, frequently their share of the marital assets.
Yeah.
And so they are strong and brave and human and humane. They are warriors, and I just appreciate all those years I got to learn from them. It was like truly, truly an honor to be there for that short chapter, sometimes longer chapter, sometimes with some of my survivors I've had like 7 chapters with them, but it's not easy to trust for them. It's not easy for them to trust anyone in the system. So when a victim trusted me, I really took that as a sacred honor, and something that I needed to not violate that trust, and I needed to do everything that I could to help them. Sometimes I could not help, but sometimes I couldn't make an arrest. Sometimes I couldn't get them the money to move to a nicer apartment. Sometimes I couldn't do anything, and I, no matter how adeptly a case is investigated and prosecuted, sometimes the sentence doesn't give the victim a sense of satisfaction, or a sense of safety is usually the biggest thing. And still, I always tried to do everything I could to make them feel safe, to make them feel heard and validated. And when you get a case, you work for that victim. That's who you work for. And you work for the victim.
I can't help but think, Sandie, as I'm listening to you, how much of the way you paved as your time as a detective, rolling into, I want to get into the Boulder DA's office in a minute, but Nat and I, in the recent past, and I won't share details, but we did have to recommend incarceration, which is, as you work with DV treatment providers all the time. We are no, I don't want to say eternal optimists, but we understand the best shot at prevention is to find a way to do something with the offender. We really do. Like that's the jam, that's the job.
Yeah.
We're like you. We do a job that nobody really wants to do. And so
Right.
we get to learn all kinds of things just because there's not a next man up a lot of the time to do this job.
Right.
But I do think about some of those survivors that you've worked with, and I think this survivor was like that, where there's been a lot of effort to keep themselves safe and it wasn't working. And so I'm very thankful for that outcome. It's not something that we recommended lightly, but one of the things that you've brought to me from all of this experience is just an awareness of victim safety, because Nat and I can get a little sideways working with the person in front of us who may be presenting, scarily well. And I have your voice in my head and our victim advocate's voice in my head and, in front of me at all times saying, victim safety, victim safety, victim safety. And I think it really grounds our work.
Yeah. Yeah. And, and it takes all of us. And honestly, it takes the whole community to keep victims safe and to hold offenders accountable and give them a chance to live a violent-free life.
Right.
Because that's ultimate. And you're right, Janine, that treatment is the best way forward most of the time, because most relationships, or I would say many, I don't have the stat, many relationships survive a DV arrest and a DV conviction. And most DV offenders, even for felony offenses, do not go to prison.
That's right.
They get community-based sentences, which means that they have free access to their victims despite court orders prohibiting that contact. It's there, and most of them are going to violate those orders. And that I don't have a specific statistic, but based on all the cases I've reviewed and victims I've worked with, by and large, upper 90% of all DV offenders violate the no contact order. They violate probation in some capacity or other, some of them very severely, and some are a little more mild, like they're not allowed to drink, but maybe they have a couple of beers, or they're not allowed contact, but they text back and forth, or they go on dates, or they're living back in the family home, whatever it is. So when victims come forward and they make the call for service and there is an arrest and the offender bonds out, usually the next business day following their bond hearing in court, they're back out.
Yeah.
And so victims have to weigh and measure every single word that they're going to disclose to law enforcement, because they know, I call that whole phenomenon tomorrow is coming. So they call the police, or maybe they didn't call the police, but the vast majority of calls for service are placed by victims or family friends, family and friends. And so even when they make that call for service, it's because they want that acute abuse to stop, and they just want that person to quit hurting them.
Yeah.
They don't want them in trouble. Most victims don't want their abusers in trouble. They certainly don't want them in jail or prison.
We try so hard to help them understand this. Like, well, the victim will tell you nothing happened. We're like, yeah, victims recant. They recant
all the time
for safety.
Yeah, well, for safety, but also for that reason you're saying, Sandie, because they genuinely care about their partner.
Oh, yeah, they love them.
And don't want them to get in trouble. One of the things that I'm thinking as you're talking, Sandie, is, I generally have had a really positive experience with law enforcement and police officers that I've talked to about domestic violence. However,
mine's been a mixed bag, but yes.
Yeah, Janine's has been a mixed bag. However, I do know it's a mixed bag. And so I think one of the things that I really appreciate the work that you've done and that you continue to do is the advocacy for police to intervene, because that doesn't always happen. I mean, I've worked with offenders where they will straight up tell me, people who have self-selected to be in a DV group because, partner selected to be in a DV group. And they'll say, yeah, cops came and I wasn't arrested. And they'll tell me the whole situation. I'm like, your ass should have been thrown in jail. That's insane to me. Right.
Yeah.
And so to have officers out there who do believe in that work, who don't want to have the mindset that officers used to have and still have in other states.
They don't want to pull a Gabby Petito.
What happens behind closed doors stays behind closed doors, and just go stay at a hotel, right? Like, I'm thankful that Colorado has moved away from that and that there is a mandatory arrest, but people still don't get arrested. And so I appreciate the work that you've done and the intensity that you go at it, to be honest with you.
Oh, yeah. You don't shy away from this at all. And I want to hear, Sandie, about your work with the DA's office in 2020, and then also the DV acute response team.
Oh, so thank you. So after, so I spent 10 years in the DV unit at Longmont, and then I had an opportunity to work. So you guys, I think there's something pathologically wrong with me, right? Because I wanted to work at the DA's office and have county-wide oversight on DV investigations. I'm like, there's just not enough DV in Longmont. There actually is, right? There actually is. And we were a robust unit, and we had a huge caseload, and we had lots of DV and plenty to do. But I wanted to be more impactful on a county-wide basis. And the only way to have kind of purview or any kind of, when I say authority, I didn't have any authority. Like, I was super low on the human
influence.
food chain. That's a better word. Yeah. I had no authority because I was low on the food chain, but I was able to help affect change. So at the time, Ann Kelly was a prosecutor at the Boulder DA's office, and she and I worked a couple of cases together. Some very significant, serious, and horrific DV cases. And she I would say was, except for she is a force of nature. She's now the elected DA down in the 12th in Alamosa. She's a trailblazer. She's just um, she's just flat out DV badass. So she and I so it was the summer of 2020 during COVID. We sat in her backyard and on some scratch paper we found, we drew out plans for what would become the Domestic Violence Acute Response Team, or DV-ART. And in the meantime, I had spoken with the elected district attorney, Michael Doherty, who is a wonderful human and the best leader, the best boss that I've ever worked for. And I had an opportunity to come to work for him at the same time that Anne is behind the scenes whispering, I think in his ear, DV-ART, DV-ART, DV-ART. And maybe she was playing it, like somehow broadcasting that subliminally.
Y'all were tag teaming.
We totally did. It was a total conspiracy.
We know nothing about that.
Right, right. And one thing about Michael Doherty is he is passionate about keeping DV victims safe, advocating for victims, holding offenders accountable, and always looking for ways to address recidivism and just reduce the incidence of DV all around. So he agreed to let us form DV-ART. So it was me as the dedicated DV investigator. And an investigator, so for listeners who aren't sure, I was still a peace officer, I was still law enforcement, but working at the district attorney's office, we were known as investigators instead of detectives, but we had that same role.
Okay. So were you bringing charges, or were you going in and bringing context to the case?
Kind of both. It kind of both. It kind of evolved. So it was me, and we got a second prosecutor, Allison Brand, who is now the head of DV-ART at Boulder DA's office. So the three of us would review. So the difference between what I did at Longmont, we would review all cases coming in, whether arrests were made or not, or if they were in progress, we would review those, give advice, etc. At the DA's office, most of our work was post-arrest. So there would be an arrest made, a DV arrest, and then we, the three of us, would read and review these arrest reports and really assess them for completeness, accuracy, and charging. So sometimes they were charged as felonies and they were more appropriate for misdemeanor, or vice versa. Frequently they were charged as misdemeanors, and when we're reading it, we're like, oh man, this looks more like a felony. So then we would also
upgrade it.
Yeah. But it's not simple to upgrade a case. And I won't go into the long and winding, kind of actually boring process for upgrading, but really what it takes is having to take the original case and write a warrant. Hopefully before the judge sees this case at 1:30 in the afternoon.
And says it's a misdemeanor, and then it's formal.
Yeah, because if it's charged as a misdemeanor, then that case has to be dismissed after the felony case is filed. And so it's a very
that makes sense.
Specific process that just has to do with case numbers and how it's filed in the court, and how you can't just walk it across the hall and say, my bad, this really is yours. You can't do that. So we would look at that. We would also look at lethality risk factors and risk of reoffense. And risk of reoffense would be based on training, experience, knowledge, that person's criminal history, what the victim may have said in the narrative. And so upon doing that, upon reviewing these cases and getting them ready for the bond hearing docket, then we would reach out to some of the victims who had the higher risk cases, or those where we just needed a little bit more evidence or specifics, knowing that victims tend to regret speaking with law enforcement. So the sooner we could talk to them and get clarifying answers on some of these questions that seemed evident in the narratives, we would ask them. This was, of course, during COVID, so this was all virtual. So we would send them a link and have a conversation with them, and so we could see their injuries on camera. We could look at a strangulation victim and see that the marks were darker than they were on body cam, and so on. So that would help us help the victim, and we always offered victims community-based confidential services. So at the end of every call, even if the victim didn't want to talk to us, we'd say, hey, there's this place where you can go to get safety planning, resources, counseling, whatever you need, and it's free and confidential. And so what that means is that you can tell them anything you want, and it's not going to appear in a report or a courtroom. And so we would encourage every victim, whether they were able to fully participate or they were completely reluctant to ever even answer another phone call, we gave them those resources and they could follow up as needed. And we would ask them, would you like us to have them call you? Would you like to call them? What kind of communication would you like? Is this a safe phone number? What's the best way for you to connect to these people? And we would let it be their choice because they get to have agency and their next steps. And so then frequently during those phone calls or when we would meet with them, those victims, and I know that a lot of times they're survivors too, but when we are working with them in the initial stages, they're still referred to as victims. So I don't mean to insult anyone who has survived this, but when we were working with them, they were legally identified as victims. So,
and that's partially due to how we hold offenders accountable.
Right.
Is, we have to use the term, because we still do in the DV realm in treatment, refer to a victim, because it actually, that narrative helps the offender understand that they've caused harm.
Yeah.
But I agree. I mean, I hear you totally, that I think a lot of quote unquote case victims have embraced the term survivor, and they absolutely are survivors.
Yeah, and if they want me to call them survivors, I will call them whatever they want me to call them.
Absolutely.
Because it's their choice. But legally, from identifying a participant's role in a criminal justice process, you're a witness, you're a victim, you're a defendant, you're a professional, so there's, you're an officer, but there are ways of identifying them. So when we work with these victims, we would bring them in for interviews, and I would always do kind of like the DV history relationship deep dive to try to figure out where things went wrong and try to figure out those nuances of coercive control, and honestly, to get more details about the index offense that their abuser had just been charged with. And so when those things would arise, when those disclosures would arise, sometimes the victims were willing to provide evidence, and with evidence in their testimonial statement, it could result in a brand new case. So I would pull a new case number, I would write a warrant, I would do the full investigation. And then that abuser would be charged with a second case or third case or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, they would, try all at once or, a global plea kind of thing. But
that could increase the consequences and possibly keep it from being a modified protection order. Like, those are very real things that keep victims more safe.
Right. And so, my role at the DA's office was not initially intended to do a bunch of new investigations. So, we weren't first responders. I think we were I would call us third responders by the time we got
Yeah.
to the DA's office.
You weren't walking
But-
into the house, but you were talking to
Right.
the victim. Yeah.
Yeah, and as victims disclosed and provided evidence, that would result in a new case. And I had plenty of new cases. I don't know the number. But it was very satisfying, very gratifying. And we got to see victims in every state of participation, every level of commitment to offender accountability, and that same amount of commitment to just leave me alone, drop the charges. I can't do this. I don't want to participate anymore. I just want to get on with my life. And sometimes it's because they were back together with their abusers who were intimidating them, coercing them, manipulating them into helping them, the abuser, avoid prosecution. But also, these were intimate relationships, and Nat said it already. These are intimate relationships. It's a life partner. They frequently still love each other. They often share lives and children and finances. Sometimes they're business partners as well as intimate partners. And so, how do I go to work and not be around this person? How do I do this? And realistically, how do we support two households? We can barely support one. So they're back together and et cetera. And let's face it, like, who among us, show of hands, wants the man all up in your private business? People don't. People don't.
Yeah.
And so, it's that long and winding road. And so I just appreciate I appreciate being allowed into these lives for as much as a phone call, all the way up to some of my favorite survivors. They're not favorite because they were better than the others, but there's a handful that I'm still in contact with. Some of them I've known since I very first got into the DV unit in 2010.
Yeah.
And it's really cool. So it's been an honor. So sometimes it's one phone call, sometimes it's 15 years, 12 years, 10 years that I've known these ladies, and it's really like the coolest part of my job. And I'm pretty sure it's going to cost me years of my life from the stress and the sense of being responsible, like literally responsible for somebody's life and physical well-being. Because with DV is the one specialty that if you make a mistake or you work the wrong case first because you're like, oh, this one looks like it can
we feel that.
it's the one where somebody can die.
I'm sitting here and I'm looking at Nat's face and I'm like tearing up a little, just because I can relate to every single thing you're saying, and I work on the offender side, and we laugh with our clients and say we don't have favorites. We totally do.
You can't help it.
I'm unapologetic, to be honest, about it, because some of them are awful and some of them are amazing. But we also keep in touch with some of our folks, and they come back and they engage in aftercare services, and they work on their relationships, and they tell on themselves when things start to happen again, sometimes before the courts get involved. And so
when some of them really, like, I would say the majority really don't want to keep hurting their family. Right. And I think that's part, they get stuck in intergenerational patterns and et cetera, et cetera. And so the ones that Janine's talking about, I think, are the ones who come back are genuinely the ones who are like, I gotta figure this out.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just like this human Greek tragedy that you see playing itself out here. And what was here? Okay. So here's the sad thing. So when I went from being an SRO, the kids were 11 to 14, and I worked with them, and I was there 3.5 years. So, they're growing up and going to high school and graduating or not graduating, but growing up. When I was in the DV unit then for the next 10 years, and then at the DA's office for 3.5 years, I would see their names. It would make me so sad. I'm like, oh, that was one of my kids. That was one of my kids. That was one of my kids.
Mm-hmm.
And what was really a bummer is it was frequently predicted outcomes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You could see it coming.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I shared this on the pod before, Sandie, but there was a bully in my son's kindergarten class, and he didn't bully my son because my son's huge, but he
Right.
bullied my son's best friend. He bullied some of the girls. And he was full on choking kids.
Mm.
I don't know a kindergartner in the world who's going to go choke somebody unless they've seen it. It's just not something people do. It's such a power and control move. I know this kid has seen it in their house. And I was like raising hell at the school, of course, like we do. And I really felt for this kid, but also I just wanted to shake him and be like, dude, like, look what you're doing. And I wouldn't be surprised at all to see him in classes, to see him in the news, and he'll be a young offender. He already is a bit of an offender. He will be a young offender. And, I think about the fact that you've done, in the notes you sent us, 13,000
Yeah.
cases that you've maybe
that's
been
nuts.
involved in, which is unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
And then you continue in your retirement years now that we're in, right? What, you've been retired a year, a little over a year?
It's fake retirement, but
Maybe
yeah.
it's fake. I mean, I still see you an awful lot doing a lot of things
Yeah.
being retired.
Well, Sandie, I think, as I was saying before, like the work that you've done in the police world and in all your worlds, really. I love what you said, like how I'm not going to say the same thing you said because I actually don't think all the like quote unquote bullshit jobs you did are bullshit. I think they all are very intentional and led you to a really awesome place and all played a certain role. Like, and you said that, but you also kind of, self-deprecating humor there. But I think even as you have entered into, semi-retirement, you're still a massive advocate for this work. I would never guess that you're in retirement, to be honest with you.
No.
And I'm super thankful for everything you've done and what you continue to do. I really am. I think we need more Sandies in our world.
Well, we're going to have more Sandie because we're going to shoot the shit with Sandie on a more frequent basis because I want so many things. But I think about the 13,000 cases maybe that you've been involved with directly. But then I think about the thousands of people Nat and I've worked with, and I think about the thousands of people that the team that you created that continues, the people that they will see, the people in your classrooms, like the impact, it's an unending impact. So yes, it's cost us all a few years out of our life, but man, it's an awesome way to live. I don't know how to live any different.
No, and I accept it. I don't regret that my 21 years of like total stress and all of the crushing caseloads, I don't regret any of that because it was really, really cool. I don't regret it. It's just one of those things you just know, like maybe I'll be taken out when I'm 93 instead of 96. Like whatever, okay? Or
whatever. Yeah, my money's still on 96. You're a tough bird, man.
Yeah.
Tough cookie. So we are going to continue with part 2 next time. And y'all, we have cases. Sandie's going to share some cases with us. She has shared some with me in the past that have been fascinating. I love getting her like unfiltered take on things, especially now that you're retired. We can like get even a little more out of you, which I love.
Right.
So we'll see y'all next time. And as always,
bye, forensic friends.
I'm Janine.
And I'm Nat.
And as always, thanks for listening and join us next week for more Crime, Psychology, and Heart.